pictures of chickens wearing diapers.
What? Is that real?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Irenicast, the weekly podcast dedicated to conversations on faith and culture. We are your hosts. I'm Jeff.
I'm Mona.
And I'm Alan.
Thank you once again for joining us this week. How are you two doing?
So good.
Are you drinking coffee again, Alan?
We're not going to talk about coffee this time. I want to hear about you all.
Oh,
Tell me about your life. How do you spend your days? Hey, you know, I actually used that
every
phrase.
time. You did? Every time I hear it, my heart warms a little bit.
I know. I was going to ask someone in the church that I go, like, what do you do for a living? And then I was like, wait a minute. Mona told me once I should say something else. So I tried it and I said, how do you spend your days? And it was like actually a pleasant surprise for the other person. I liked it.
Yeah. Was that our mindfulness episode? I think it was. So you can go back and listen to it. We're not going to explain it again. You're going to have to go back and listen to it if you don't know.
There you go.
Anyway, well, lately I spend my days battling fruit flies. It's the great fruit fly invasion. And
Ew.
I know. I mean, I'm in a city in an old building and there's just fruit flies like everywhere. And so I have a test going right now. We have the fruit fly traps. I can't say that. Fruit fly traps. You take a glass and you make a funnel with a piece of paper, and then you tape the funnel in the glass that's kind of pointing down so the fly can fly in, but it can't fly out. So I have one going with, vinegar and molasses as the stuff that they will smell and hopefully go in there. And the other one's going with whiskey. So we're going to see how lecherous these fruit flies are. It's very exciting.
How cultured they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's crappy whiskey. So maybe if they don't like it,
maybe you should put out good
whiskey
whiskey and crappy whiskey and see which one they go to.
Oh my God. That would be an interesting experiment. Have you guys ever battled fruit flies? It's so nasty.
That just reminds me of Jeff. Jeff and I actually did a camp together one time, and there were so many bees. And so we created all these like 2-liter bottles. We did the same thing. We cut the top off and flipped it around so it was like a funnel and taped it and then put stuff inside so the bees would get trapped. And we caught, it did work. Unfortunately, Jeff's wife was a little sad because we were killing all these animals. And we were. It was a pretty bad.
The bees are dying off. Of course, we didn't probably know that.
They weren't bees. They were yellow jackets.
They were like meat. They were meat bees. Yeah, they were like the kind that
so they were
bite
wasps.
Mm-hmm.
So they were not bees at all.
They were gross. I don't know. We used to call them meat bees. I guess they're not bees.
Yeah,
because they eat meat.
Yeah, apparently there's killer bees.
Really?
They're real. Yeah, killer bees. They eat people.
Did you hear that bees can sniff out bombs now? Apparently. The CIA has been training them. Mm-hmm.
Train bee army. That's awesome.
To sniff out explosives.
They should come over and battle my fruit fly army because I'm losing.
The Bugapolocalypse.
Bugapolocalypse.
You can't say anything.
Who's been sampling the whiskey?
Me, I have.
So I had something super random happen to me. I was driving because normally I need to drive to get my daughters to sleep. So I go for a little bit of a drive. So I pull up to a stoplight and I'm just waiting there. And I look over to my left and there is a gentleman that's walking down the crosswalk. A homeless gentleman, I'm assuming, based on his attire. He literally looked like Steven Tyler's microphone stand because he had scarves tied into every loophole on his cutoff jean shorts.
That's awesome.
Not like booty cutoff, but like at the knee cutoff, just for clarification. So he's walking, and as soon as he gets to the very center of my car, he stops, he turns towards me, he pulls out another scarf from his pocket and does a very seductive scarf dance right in front of my car.
Yes, that's awesome.
So his scarves are waving in the air, his booty's shaking, and he's looking at me very seductively with his gruff beard and dirty face. And then as soon as it stopped, as soon as it started, it stopped. And I turned around and he was gone. And I don't know if it was
it was an apparition.
It was. Be careful, I was entertaining angels unaware. It was very strange and very entertaining.
Subconscious mind working really hard is what it was.
This is reminding me of something from the other day. So I was in the car with my housemate and we were stopped at a stoplight and this woman walks past and she looks like a very normal woman with like jeans and sneakers and a jacket, you know, but she has a lion's tail, like a full-length lion's tail attached
I've seen
to her
that
behind.
before. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know what this means. I think this is some subculture that maybe we don't want to inquire into too much. However, but the thing was, she was so happy about life. Like, she just had her like just held high, and she was like smiling, like just so freaking excited to be there. And we're like, oh my God, like she knows something we don't know. What is going on? And so we told our friends about this. And so people have been seeing her all around town. Like, we'll get texts like, I saw the girl with the tail and she's so excited about life. She's so proud of herself. What's happening? So if you're listening, I want to know. I want to know what the secret is. And maybe wearing a tail will help me too. I don't know. It could be something that I don't want to.
It's just be yourself. It's a Kuna Matata. That's what it is.
Apparently so. Scarves, tails, whatever does it for you, you know?
That's right.
Like,
Why
sure.
not?
Why not? That's
because
what
you should be able to display your life to the world without worrying about people invading what you would consider private, right?
Oh God, Jeff, your segues are just so on point.
Oh my gosh, I can't take him anymore. That's the last one ever.
No, they're
That's the
going to keep
last
coming.
straw.
This is my gift to the world. It's all I got. Just let me have it.
So we're talking about privacy, right?
Yes, we are talking about privacy. We figure it is a
It was a private conversation that we were not supposed to divulge.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about privacy.
It actually did start from a private conversation, right? And we
It did.
It did.
Let's make this public. Let's go with it.
Preparing for last week's episode, we had this conversation because it is in the news, primarily with the Ashley Madison hack, and we were having ethical debates on how we should approach stuff like that. So we will continue this conversation on the other side of the music. So with recent news story, obviously primarily the Ashley Madison hack, and now that the information has been made public, when we were getting ready to record last week, we started having a really interesting conversation, and not necessarily about the obvious things like fidelity and all that kind of stuff, but we really started to think about where's the ethics in viewing stuff like that, and even, I guess, the ethic of actually hacking. And it was kind of brought up by Alan when we started talking about it.
Yeah, I had something of a dilemma. So the huge hack got all this information on people who were signing up for a service. This is what Ashley Madison does, in case you don't know. Sign up for a service so that you can cheat on your spouse without your spouse knowing about it. And Ashley Madison does all the hard work of keeping it quiet and finding people that are also going to stay quiet when they have this, transaction with you or whatever. And so when it got hacked and all the details were released, there's several websites out, and some of them are still up, where you can type in a person's email address and it confirms whether or not an account had been created on Ashley Madison. And so there's a couple things involved in that. Like, Ashley Madison didn't require a confirmation email. So if someone used your email address, it would show up in the database. But that's saying like the email address was used or whatever. But people who charge their credit cards is basically how the public has looked into all of this information. They found credit card charges to people's actual names. And so people who were on the site are now public information, for good or bad. And it's still stolen information under the law. And I was wondering, like, what is moral? What's the moral thing to do? Should you look somebody up? Should you not look somebody up? Like, I understand. Should you look up your close family? Should you look up your spouse? Should you look up somebody else's spouse? Is it right for you to do that? On the one hand, like, I'm like, I don't know, Robin Hood. There's these people who are getting cheated on and they should know about it. But on the other, like, it feels almost wrong that this site got hacked and all these people's personal details are out there. So I'm kind of caught in this weird conundrum between like looking stuff up and not looking it up. And so you were supposed to help me figure out what the right thing to do is. Right?
Choose your own moral adventure.
Exactly.
And basically, we did not come to any kind of real conclusion. We thought, well, that's the perfect premise for us to do an episode on, is to throw something out there. And
they didn't give me answers. They told me to wait.
Exactly. We said, wait till next week and we'll discuss this in detail. And I think that this has actually been an underlying issue in some of the news stories with recent hacks also. Like, there was, during the Sony hack last year, there was a lot of, not a lot, not in the mainstream, the mainstream media. I don't know if that's the right term or whatever, but there were questions of, because people lost their jobs over the Sony hack, over what people thought were racist comments or sexist comments about different actors and all that kind of stuff. And there was line of some reporters that were saying, should we really be listening to this? Like, these things are affecting other people's lives. And then, like Alan said, the other side of it, but they were being bad. They were doing stuff that was damaging to themselves and others around them. And that kind of is like this general umbrella of privacy. So we figured this would be a good time to kind of talk about the idea of privacy and all the different layers, for that. So I figure, I don't know what you guys think, but maybe a good place to start is just the idea of privacy and maybe how important it is to us, or whether it's something we think is something that should be, because it is kind of a cultural value, don't you think? Like, privacy is something that we as Americans value.
It's not anymore because of modern marketing and commodification, that because of privacy or the lack thereof, we are now products to be marketed so that people can sell your Facebook information, for example, your life information, and essentially commodify you as a product of modern society. So I think that makes it really difficult, because we say that we value privacy, but then we have the Patriot Act and we have mass, like, specified drill down marketing online that's customized to you as an individual. There are companies that build data based on you as an aggregate so that they can better market to you, so that they can make more money off of you and your preferences. So I don't think we value privacy like we used to. And I don't think that we can ever...
the illusion of privacy. Maybe that.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it, I think.
But I think there's been a major shift, and this is some of the research that I read when I was a youth pastor. It used to be that privacy was a very highly valued thing on an individual level in our culture. And because of the advent of social media and so many other reasons, we've shifted from valuing privacy to valuing genuity, like being genuine, being sincere, and expressing yourself. So it's no longer like, I'm going to protect my information, but more, how am I going to engage the world in a genuine way? And so there's like a cultural shift as well as like a technological shift as well.
And then there's the Ron Swansons of the world who like insist on being completely off the grid, because they might be onto something. Like, the more not private our lives get, the more I think that opens the door for someone to exert control over you, the more they know about you.
True, but at the same time, it could be the opposite. I don't know if you guys heard, you ever hear, they call him the Invisible Man, and it was I think it was an art professor who, after 9/11, started getting detained every time he went through, customs or whatever, because of he was believed to have been a part of some kind of threat or whatever. So after the first time he was done, the FBI gave him like a card and said, "Here, call us. We may have some more questions for you," or something like that. So he got to the place where he basically, every time he went somewhere, he just called the FBI and said, "Hey." And then it progressed into, he basically documents his entire life so that no one can exert control over him, which I thought was really fascinating, where he's like, fine. And I think he was even, quoted as, he was tweeting and saying, like, here's my life. I'm putting it all out here so that you know that I have nothing to hide and that everything is out there. And it actually allowed him freedom that if he had held on to his privacy, he wouldn't have had.
That's interesting.
It's kind of sad. But
it is, yeah.
My perspective.
I think he's quoted as saying something like, the best way to protect your privacy is to give it away.
That's pretty interesting. That's, that, I mean, and we're all on Facebook and so on, right? Like, I mean, it's not, to me, I said this before off air, but I'll say it again. I feel like, for me, there's not much to hide if I'm not doing anything wrong. I mean, but I'm also not involved in like really high state secret kind of work, but still, you know what I mean?
True. But I think that's also personality. Like, I wouldn't say I have anything to hide, but I'm a private person. Like, I don't like...
That's a family difference.
Why don't you
I come from a family that's like totally hands-on. We share things. We're very extroverted. It's very different if you come from a culture where you're not as publicly going through all of your stuff. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it's a family thing. I don't know. It could be a personality thing, but I'm curious, Jeff, as to why, though.
I don't know. I think it's just always been like, you don't need to know about me, or whatever, which is a little ironic considering what I do right now in this moment with a podcast. And
it's the same thing with your sister, though. She's the same way. You guys are more private people.
It's true. I think a lot of it had to do with our grandmother. She was very she was amazing, and she was very savvy. Like, she'd always be like, "You don't need to tell them that. They don't need to know that." Like, like, it was always this kind of like, here's how you kind of work the system. And like she had these amazing like things for everything. Like she got pulled over all the time, and she would make the pullover, like when she got pulled over by a cop, very awkward. Like, because she'd always get pulled over for not putting her seatbelt on, and she'd just tell the cop, "My breasts are too big, and I can't put it on. It's uncomfortable." And it made the situation so awkward. Like I saw her get out of so many tickets with that move, you know. So I think part of it was like the whole like don't show your hand was kind of how we were raised, I guess.
Interesting.
Don't give information unless it's needed.
Exactly.
And so I was raised the opposite. It's just like give more information than anybody will ever ask you or ever want to
I can
know.
attest to that. That's Alan's philosophy in life.
I think that's also part of the American mythos, right? The American spirit. Like our country was founded on a mistrust of imperial government and people knowing too much about you. And I think that Constitution was kind of crafted in that same sort of spirit. Like everyone should have individual determination over their lives, and it shouldn't be up to outside forces to like know too much or inquire too much into your life. So I think that's pretty. It can be pretty distinctly American, because I know I've read about a lot of much more socialist countries in Europe, for example, that have much more investigatory types of governments, or like, are required to carry their citizenship papers everywhere. But like here, there's a lot of, that's a whole other issue. That's a whole other very hotbed issue. And I don't want to be offensive in bringing that up. But what I mean to say is that there are places in the world where individual privacy is not valued like it is here.
Yeah.
As a whole.
There is a line though for us. And maybe this is where I find myself kind of making a distinction. In our culture, we actually have right now sort of ambiguous rules about expectations of privacy. If someone's a celebrity or is a leader, they have a lower expectation than somebody who is not, someone who's just like a regular citizen or whatever. So when I heard about the Ashley Madison hack, and like I was thinking about just kind of regular people living their lives or whatever, having all of their sordid personal details put out there, it just seemed kind of horrifying to me. A little bit less horrifying than the fact that they were paying a service to cheat on their spouse or whatever. Like that even horrifies me even more. So it's hard to feel bad for those people. But then you also hear about like, the person who's running a political campaign for family rights, and they're on there, what's that, Dugard? Like cheating on their spouse at the same time saying family values are super important in our society, and like forcing laws onto other people. And also someone said that there was 400 pastors that were supposed to be coming forward to their communities and actually quitting this last Sunday because of the scandal.
Yeah. I think Christianity Today reported that. That's just bonkers. Okay, but what? So
my question is, when someone's in leadership or someone's a celebrity, and
then they have a higher standard.
They have a higher standard of transparency, and we think about that as far as like our government and the whole like WikiLeaks thing and all that stuff. Like we think like holding the powers to higher standards of transparency are probably a good deal. And I don't know what I'm supposed to think about with pastors. Like if a newspaper published, something about this private person's life or whatever, it would be wrong. But what about like pastors? Is that something that you should make public? Like for instance, if I had looked somebody up and I had information on them, like, should I share it or should I not? Should I contact that person or their spouse, or like just like let it go? I don't know. Those are hard questions that I can't have resolved for myself for some reason. Yeah,
that seems pretty contextually ethical. Like it would depend on the context and the person. But my question is, why did that site get hacked? As opposed to other sites. Tinder didn't get hacked. OkCupid didn't get hacked, or whatever other sites people are using.
Because there's less moral grounds for hacking Tinder or whatever.
That's
this
what
site
I mean.
Specifically,
it's like, but I think you could construe that action of hacking as not just hacking a site to hack it, but actually whistleblowing on these people who are doing destructive things, like you said, Alan. And so I think for me, it gets into a case of like, when is whistleblowing appropriate? And does the ends of whistleblowing justify the means of whistleblowing? And why do people whistleblow? And often in our country, whistleblowers are really harshly punished. This is like a common occurrence. So,
but people who whistleblow on others, normally it's for something illegal. What was happening on Ashley Madison was not illegal at all under any of our laws.
But it's breaking marriage.
That's true.
Which are legally binding. Are they legally binding? No, they're not.
No, it is not illegal to have an affair, as far as I know.
In some states it is. And it may not be, even if it wasn't in a state, there are service members. If you're in the military, it is illegal to so people can get taken out of the military if they found out they had an affair, if they choose to go that way. So a lot of military people are complaining about the Ashley Madison, or not complaining, but are at risk of losing their position because of the Ashley Madison hack, because it is illegal.
Just so many lives destroyed. This is just an awful, like, adultery aside. Okay, so let's say, for the sake of argument, it's not illegal to have an affair, but you're also signing a marriage license, which is a legal document. So it is a legal situation with society and on a moral level as well.
Yeah,
right?
It has ramifications and a divorce or whatever. But the question is, was the hack a public service, or should it be seen as like a criminal activity first and foremost and only? There are people on both sides of that I've talked to a lot of people, and they say absolutely public service. That's Robin Hood right there. And other people are like, wow, that's a horrible infringement upon so many people's lives. I don't know. It's tough to answer.
And like groups like Anonymous that take down like regimes, like the ISIS websites and social media accounts, like that's some hardcore hacking. And technically, I think what they're doing is illegal because they're like breaking into big sites like Facebook, but they're doing it for the sake of scrambling communication networks for people who want to kill others. So it's, I would
the
say
ends
that,
justify the means.
I would say saving actual lives. To me, this is how I break it down. But I mean, you can disagree with me. I would say saving actual lives is more Robin Hood-y than the Ashley Madison thing. I do think there should be legal ramifications for the hackers. I don't think they should be unjustly punished, but I think there has to be. They had to have known that they were going to be liable for those actions to hack the site.
Mm-hmm.
They had to do it knowingly. Whether the judge wants to be lenient or not, that's up to the legal system to have mercy on them, but they're still legally liable for breaking into intellectual property, or right? I'm not a legal expert, but it seems like they shouldn't just get off completely scot-free.
And there's different fallout for different people, right? I mean, like it'd be nice to think that every single person who got hacked was a Josh Duggar, was somebody who was pushing family values on people, trying to form our society one way while personally believing and living something completely different. Like, it would be nice to think that they all operated that way. But I went on Reddit looking up the fallout of this whole thing, and someone a week before the hack even came out, this is a real thing. Someone posted on Reddit the week before the hack came out a post that says, "I'm a gay single man from a country where gay equals the death penalty, who is about to be outed on Ashley Madison. How do I apply for refugee status?" Then went through this whole post of, "I am from Saudi Arabia, where homosexuality carries the death penalty. I studied in America the last several years and used Ashley Madison during that time. The website has been hacked and they're threatening to release it. Gay sex is punishable by death in my home country, so I wanted my hookups to be extremely discreet, and that's why they used Ashley Madison." So it's like, and now they're back in Saudi Arabia, and their details are going to get released. And if people find that out, they could literally be killed next week. And so it's hard to think about the ramifications of this. It's not just people who are living hypocritically or whatever. There are other people that are affected as well. And it's like, what fallout is appropriate, God,
that's awful. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's something that I didn't. At first, I was just like, well, good for them. Those cheaters need to be ousted. That's what should happen. But then there's all these other stories that don't quite fit that narrative. And then people have been taking their own lives, apparently, because of this. There's a few cases in Canada of people who have reacted that way. And so, I don't know. And
another statistic that I found really quite striking, and this, I guess, needs to be corroborated because I only saw it here and there, but that statistically, most of the users on there were heterosexual men. Mm-hmm. And the women that were being showcased or like supposedly on there were actually really not active at all. And the men were just really talking to each other. And so there's a gender component of this too. Yeah.
And there was also there's evidence of women that were actually hired to be users on there to kind of pad the numbers a little bit.
And that's where fake emails come in. I think emails might have been used from people who were not active on there, but their email got used because I think there was some news story that came out that said Ashley Madden itself was padding its numbers. And so they were using these email addresses from real people, even though those people weren't on it. So it's not a cut and dry thing. Listener, if you look up somebody and they're on there, it doesn't mean for sure that they've been on there or whatever, because there are some of these cases.
And I also heard 1 in 7 Canadians were using the site. 1 in 7.
Well, that's where the business is based out of.
Yeah,
But that
it's primarily Canadian.
Hey, if you
it
guys
is,
had to
but
guess,
1 in 7. Holy Moses!
hey, if you had to guess, which state had the highest rate of users? Have you guys looked up the statistic?
It's like Oklahoma or something. I don't know.
Not quite. What would you guess?
Texas.
It's actually Alabama, so pretty close.
Alabama. Oh my God.
And basically, it's like,
Bible Belt.
that's right. The place where you really have to hide your affair, that's where you go on Ashley Madison. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So okay. So I'm thinking this is really interesting because I wrote a paper last year about the rhetorics around the sex industry. Different subject. I know that Ashley Madison is not focused on the sex industry, it's focused on affairs. However, what I was exploring in the paper is why we have these really explicit terms for mostly women who provide sexual services like prostitute or sex worker, but the men who mostly hire the women
are called Johns.
They're all called something really anonymous, or they're just referred to by professionals who like social workers and stuff who I've met who've worked in this industry and try to like help people recover from sex industry on both sides. They call the men the demand. They're just this innocuous force. Yeah.
Weird.
And so what I wrote about in the paper was like when you allow a group of people in an equation to be completely anonymous, then it's like their power becomes unlimited. Like the demand becomes unlimited, so the supply has to become unlimited. And you have this like perpetual motion machine of an ever increasing industry. And so I think this is the same kind of an idea that my conclusion in the paper was that power and hegemony, power basically hides in anonymity. And where there are high cases of anonymity, I think you have to look at who's actually wielding power and who's actually getting hurt, because often it's not the people who are hiding.
That's interesting.
So, and
Ashley Madison's all about anonymity. That's right. The whole, like the picture is a woman like shushing, right? Like, shh, nobody's going to find out your information. And the people who are getting hurt are the people who don't know what's actually going on.
How awesome. Also, man, my mind's going a million directions, but how amazing though is it that people have that much trust in the internet security nowadays that they will trust their personal lives with the internet, with a website that's only been around for a couple of years. That's incredible to me that like our faith in the internet, capital I, is like way up there.
Well, yeah. Well, and I think that's part of, clever marketing, because on their site, they have like we won a security award. And there's even a lot of people that were involved in the hack that paid an additional $250 to get all of their information deleted after they stopped their account. And Ashley Madison never deleted it. So they're making money off of telling people that's even more secure by we're just going to wipe everything off, but then it wasn't wiped off.
Funny
so
thing,
they're
a
seedy-ass company.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it too.
That was one of the reasons cited by the hackers. We are releasing your information because you said you would delete people's information after they paid you for that, and you did not do it. So we're releasing, which is like really weird. They actually gave Ashley Madison time to shut down. They said, close down your site and we won't share this information. Yeah, and so Ashley Madison refused, and so they released it. It was a pretty big deal.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because there was like a month between the announce of the hack and then the information being released.
Literally, the only information that was encrypted in the whole website were the passwords. That's it. That's the only encrypted information. God. I know, it's pretty stupid. There's a lot of layers
they've opened
to this.
themselves to like a million civil suits, right? So whether it's criminal or not,
they put out a $500,000. They put out a $500,000 bounty for the hackers because I think they want to shift some of the blame to the hackers, even though they were the ones who didn't protect their information, and they lied to customers. Again,
like the hackers aren't like there's already so much wrong been done. The hackers are not contributing to that wrong that has been done. You know what I mean? That's a separate thing.
It's funny that you're trusting. It's kind of funny that you're trusting a company that is helping you lie to somebody
to violate your trust.
To violate their trust.
You guys totally said you wouldn't hurt me.
It's interesting.
It's so complicated, isn't it?
You know what's funny? It's also spawned some weird hipster like responses. There's a couple people who were like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see what it's like to be on Ashley Madison," and so they wrote these like exposés where they went and met these people, and I don't know. There's some interesting stuff floating around now because of the hack.
That sounds like, well, let's sign up real quick and say we're doing it out of this reason, so if our name gets out there.
Maybe.
Well, because there was that viral video that came out of that guy who like, what did he do? He like surprised his wife with her pregnancy or something like that? Like some Christian YouTuber?
It was a Christian YouTuber took the pregnancy test, and then they actually had a miscarriage like a week later. So that was like a big story.
Oh,
but then he's on Ashley Madison, and they have several kids. And so there was like this apology video. Yeah, but hey, he was pushing for family values as well. It's really hard to feel bad for people when they look at the rest of the population and they say, we're going to make gay marriage illegal. We're going to make this illegal, all based on the idea that marriage is important. And then they're hiring people to hide their affairs. Like
why is it the people who scream the loudest about that stuff often are caught in these salacious scenarios? Like, what the hell? I honestly don't.
I think people are so torn up sometimes about themselves that they are battling themselves more than they are the public. So if they're going to come out and be really against, this topic or that topic, really it's mirroring this internal conflict that they have, and they're just projecting that onto the public.
I mean, that makes sense. I'm not a shrink, but that makes total sense to me.
Me neither. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the question we're trying to answer then with all of this? Like, was it morally justifiable for the hackers to hack the site?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you think, in your opinion, because honestly, this is opinion, legally, it was illegal for them to hack the site? That's private information. And anybody who uses that information is buying and trading in stolen information. So
on a legal level, they did something illegal and wrong.
But morally,
morally, I don't think so. I mean, but then, like you said, there's always those random, like really rare cases where people are, gay in a country that beheads them for being gay. It's complicated.
What do you think, Jeff?
I do think as a whole, yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
I don't know. I think it's tough. I think for our listeners' sake and anyone else who, I would say that all of us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but all of us, whatever we say now, we're holding on to lightly because we really and genuinely are conflicted. But Mona, I go back to what you talked about earlier. I think morally, it is our duty to whistleblow or call out, even through illegal means, if it's lives that are in danger.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, that's the line. Like,
okay, so what about those people who are being exposed to STDs and they don't even, first of all, I want to say, if you were on Ashley Madison or you've had an affair, this topic's triggering for you, like there is a whole lot of empathy that I have toward you. And I want you to know that like, that's not, doesn't have to be the end of your life. It doesn't have to be the end of your
relationships. You probably have other stuff going on.
Yeah. And I'm not going to sit here and judge anybody for the actions that they take. My thing, it's hard to get out of my brain, and maybe it's this hero syndrome that I have, is the people who are exposed to all these things and they don't even know. Like they don't know they're being exposed to all these other, I don't know, STDs or risks. It's risk. There's a risk every time you have an affair. You're not just risking physical stuff. You're also risking like emotional fallout, financial fallout, all these things. And this other partner is carrying that risk without knowing it. So it's endangering them and endangering their family unit. So it feels like whistleblowing in this instance might be that public service, because you might be saving someone's life literally because, hey, they need to go get tested because this person's seen 50 different people and you have no idea what's going on, I
think the fact that the website got a fair warning makes the hackers' actions more moral because they were I'm serious.
At least in their eyes. At least in their eyes. Yeah.
No, I think so. They gave him a fair warning. They're like, we don't want to do this, but there's just this swath of horribleness happening here, and you guys as a company are really disreputable, and we're going to expose you.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I think that you can. I don't know. Because that's the difficulty is like, do I agree? Like, did I take a little bit of pleasure the fact that Josh Duggar was called out? I kind of did. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was like, you know what? Good. You have done so much damage to, number one, the people that you abused and have just written off as, well, I'm forgiven and everything's okay. And then, number
yourself.
number two, yourself. And number two, his wife. Like, to me, the biggest part about this is that these males that are being called out is that their wives are taking a back seat while they're still getting the spotlight, even though they're the ones that did all this stuff. Like,
oh, and more than that, in his case, because he's basically put some of the blame on her, like she didn't meet his needs enough. Well, like publicly, he said shit like that.
No, she said it. That's the problem.
She said it.
He created such a culture that the wife felt like she had to take part of the responsibility.
Oh, she said it. Oh my God.
Just it pisses me off. So when I hear stuff like that, I'm so glad that he got called out. But then at the other side of it, it's like, you know, Alan, the story that you put out there. So I don't know. I guess I'm calling for a moral compass for our hackers. You know, something like, you know, do some cross. Like if you find out for sure that this person has HIV and they know it and they're going out, then call that individual person out because of their story. But
so what you're saying is it's very contextual.
Yeah,
that's what you're both kind of saying.
Yes.
Maybe there could have been a third way. Maybe the hackers could have published how unencrypted the data was, but not released the actual data.
They did. They posted first before they posted anything else. They posted a screenshot of like really sensitive information that wasn't tied to any specific person and said, "Hey, this is the workings of your company. We have literally very sensitive information, and we're going to release more." And so
people who paid the money and like maybe stopped having affairs and like turned their life around, they also went down with this ship too.
Or people who never had an affair. And they just signed up for the site and they thought, you know, better, or they were just curious, or they had a bad night or whatever. And and then now they've lost all the trust from.
Wow.
Which maybe they should lose all the trust. I don't know.
But you're right, Ellen. They did not have a verification. Like even if I sign up for like social media or any kind of regular website, I put my email address in and then I get an email saying verify this is your email address.
Well, of course they wouldn't do that because if your spouse checks your partner checks your email account, then they would see email confirmation for AshleyMadison.com.
Well, then if you should be signing up with a different email, like
that's another interesting layer too, is that people used like their personal emails, they use their government emails, they use their church emails. No joke. They use their church emails. And it's like there's a thin slice of the population, I think, that was actually more ousted than everybody else. It's the people who are just old enough before a lot of the technology came out that they didn't think to create a dummy account for their email. And they're like, just put that in there. So they're actually more at risk of being found out than anybody else. That's pretty interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, then the other side of it, I think that you can tell how cavalier someone is with them signing up on how much control they have of their environment that no one would check on them. So where's the individual accountability? If they're just throwing out their church email address, what kind of church do they run where they know that they're free to do that?
So can I throw one more thing into it?
Sure.
For me personally, because I'm seriously trying to come to different grips with this. My thing is, who do you look up? And like, why? Are there people you should look up or people you shouldn't look up? Or should you look anybody up for being on this? Because I was in a evangelical undergrad that was basically like witch hunting constantly for people who are sinners. And so like the first 5 chapels of this Christian undergrad had chapel messages on basically ferreting out the sin in other people. And so it created this really paranoid atmosphere where like I was worried I was offending people or making people stumble by like what shoes I was wearing or like, you know, who I was standing next to or was. And so it created this really unhealthy obsession with finding the sin in other people. And I read through the New Testament and I see things like Jesus saying, you know, take the tree out of your eye before you try to take a speck out of someone else's. And so there's this idea that before you go find sin in other people, make sure like you're not just projecting it yourself or you have things in your own life that are going on. So where's the line between that, between helping people or looking someone up because you actually care and you care about what's happening to them, or you're just trying to find sin in other people's lives? Is that something we should do or shouldn't do?
I don't think we should. I think we should just leave it alone, in the sense that I'm just thinking in terms of regular everyday life. Like in those situations, you're adding a new layer of complication if you kind of rat someone out, I guess. I don't know. Like some of that stuff's kind of happen naturally, or maybe the person knows and they don't want to know. And if they have, I don't.
What about church leadership? And this is hard to even talk for me because I've been in situations with church leadership where people I really cared about, there was horrible fallout from things that had happened, poor choices they had made, and it really affected an entire community of people. And part of that might have been that we had a bad communal ethic or a bad communal way of even being, where we set, like you said before, set people up on pedestals or did certain unhealthy things that made it worse than it should have been. Or maybe they didn't handle the situation right. But like, I don't know. I have some trauma from that whole experience. And so like, what do you do when you find out? And there's stuff online right now. What do I do now that I know my pastor's on Ashley Madison? What would you tell somebody? What should they do?
Man, that's so hard. I don't know. I normally have like snarky answers or
I know, right?
Something to say, but I honestly don't know if you should take the time. I feel like I would probably look up my spouse personally. I probably would.
That has to be okay, right? To at least do that.
I don't know. I mean, that affects me, and I wouldn't want to witch hunt, but I would want to talk to them and be like, "Hey, what's the story?" You know, I that affects me personally. That puts me at risk, like you said, my person, my finances, my emotional being. But I think looking up other people's spouses is not like that should be between them, right? Maybe. I think these are all married people. We're supposing,
unless there is, and this is where I draw the line. Unless that person is standing up in front of a whole group of people constantly telling them that they're sinners because they're doing this and this wrong, and they're like pushing even a political agenda to prevent people from getting married or whatever, I think at that level, maybe it is okay to see if they're to like verify whether they're actually living. If they're
in a position of moral leadership, then yeah, I think so. I think you are accountable. Like you get a lot of privileges for being that position because you have a higher level of accountability and responsibility for other people's souls and lives. And
yeah, but I don't know. Like, why would you want to put that on yourself? Like, where do you draw the line? I'm only going to look at churches I was a part of. Well, my really good friend is a part of this church. Like, I don't know. Like,
maybe it's where you can actually make a difference, and you're not just doing it for the sleaziness of it.
As pertains to you as a person. Like if it affects you, then
that's like kind of selfish though, right? Like it's not just about us gaining power; it's about helping people. Some people,
yeah, but
and
it can become voyeuristic, is what I'm trying to say. That's very true.
And without becoming voyeuristic, I think if you can actually be a part of the solution, then maybe it's okay. If you cannot possibly be a part of the solution, maybe it's not okay to look people up. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. There are some people I know that are dear to me who are sex addicts. And so like actually getting found out was the very first step in their healing process. Like they would have been continuing this, and it was unhealthy for them, and it was difficult, and it's something that they're working through. And so maybe helping someone take that first step is part of their process, and that's you being a good friend to them. You know, it's not just about satisfying something for us. It's about health of other people and communities.
Right. And I think, like, for example, what if this list had been hacked of everyone who's ever registered with AA, with Alcoholics Anonymous? And like all of a sudden it was public who was an alcoholic, you know? So I'm trying to think, like, would it be prescient?
That'd be so different for me.
That would be so different, I think, because that's that person. I mean, yes, it affects other people, but that's that person doing it to themselves. It's not in spite of promises that they've made to another person.
But it's different in the sense that that database, like if you were part of AA, it means that at some level you're trying to avoid the behavior you are. Where if the Ashley Madison effect, like I'm participating because I want to further this activity in my life.
If it was just like, hey, we're going to deliver alcohol to your home, you're an alcoholic and whatever. Let's just say there's a
website out there,
but it's about
alcoholics who are trying to pursue alcoholism and not stop alcoholism.
And the reason it's different is that people who are paying to have affairs, and this is not everybody who was on Ashley Madison, but the people who are paying to have affairs hidden from their spouse or their community, like you said off of air, Mona, they're breaking a social contract. And so maybe that broken social contract means
I said they're breaking a covenant.
A covenant, yeah. And so maybe our social contract to them is modified by that because of that action.
Yeah, but then even then, where do you draw the line between, well, if you do something bad, then I can do something bad in return? You know what I mean?
It's not bad though. Yeah, I don't think.
Well, no. They've broken a covenant by cheating on their spouse. They've already broken that marriage covenant. If they promise to be faithful and then they are not faithful anymore.
True, but if we break covenant, does that mean like all bets are off? Like I'm not saying that you're not right, but I'm just saying that's why I think this is such a difficult thing.
I'm saying that the spouse deserves to know if that promise has been broken.
Yeah. But then who takes up that mantle? You know what I mean? Like who?
The hackers.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Whose responsibility is it to look for information? And I think people can easily become very paranoid about their spouse being faithful to them, and that's an awful way to live too. Jealousy, that's kind of just unhinged all the time.
But what about leaders? What about communal leaders?
I think for me, I'm pretty firm on the side of like leaders. There's not a lot of rules when it comes to leaders. Leaders should get their private lives in order before attempting to lead other people. I really do.
That sounds very biblical to me. I'm serious. It does.
Well, I think that raises an interesting point. Like, would you say that, I don't know, that the Bible even gives you the opportunity to try to protect your privacy?
I don't think there's any concept of privacy necessarily talked about in the Bible other than like when you see public leaders And this is some things in the New Testament that talk about public leaders are held to a higher standard, and you need to respond appropriately to public leaders who are not leading well. Like,
what about texts that talk about, that everything in the dark will be dragged into the light?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of thematics about anti-privacy. Like, somebody's having sex in the temple, lightning strikes them. Like there's a lot of what is secret will be revealed. So
I would say the Bible almost argues for you shouldn't hold on to privacy at all. Like, it's all going to get found out anyway. So if you don't want to find out, don't do it.
I think we need to hold leadership responsible, especially people who are exercising. So maybe this is where it comes out. Like, I think we need to hold people who are exercising power over others to a higher standard, right? But the Bible also talks about not just constantly walking around looking for ways people are breaking the law or looking for ways people are sinning and pointing it out. So maybe if it feels like in this situation, there are a lot of marriages where there is a power difference. There is a power differential. And so the person who has more power is probably the one on Ashley Madison, and the other person doesn't even know. And so we're holding that person to a higher account by giving the other person the information they don't have. I don't know.
They're miserable and they want out of their marriage and they don't have any other. I mean, there's just so many different scenarios. I'm thinking there's this proverb that says, be careful what you say. Something like, I'm not quoting verbatim, but be careful what you say behind closed doors because a little birdie could hear it and whisper it to your enemies. And then Jesus took that a step further and said, don't even say these things in your heart. Don't even say rakah to your brother in your heart.
Yeah.
Because that's not even, that'll get you in trouble. So, or it's not even so much about getting in trouble. It's about being a circumspect, loving person that doesn't want to cause harm to others and not even doing those things in the secret of secret places, but just not doing them. But I think we have this whole culture of like repressed sexuality, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Absolutely. I mean, maybe the line is
we've set ourselves up for this awful, awful system, I think.
Maybe the line for me, and maybe it's different in every single context, it's punitive versus restoration sort of justice. If you can take a step in this specific situation that leads towards restoration, because someone who is having an affair, that's not a restored thing. If someone's hiding that stuff from their person, if you can somehow be a part of the restoration of that, then go for it. But if it's purely punitive and it's purely because we love to see people fall from whatever heights they're in, then that doesn't strike a healthy or like a Christian chord in my heart.
So, and I think a question needs to be asked, why do people have affairs to begin with? A lot of times it's symptomatic. It's not causal, meaning that it's a symptom of something much deeper going on. It's a symptom of somebody being in a really bad place, otherwise you wouldn't, and especially if you're habitually cheating, you have other stuff you need to work out. Most likely, you're not just going to do that for kicks and giggles because you're perfectly happy and fulfilled and content in your life. And oh, by the way, let's just have fun and like play Russian roulette with my marriage. Like that just doesn't really happen, So, I don't know. For me, and I'm a radical woman, of course, but it begs the question for me that the institution of marriage is pretty faulty if half the marriages we have fail. So I think I'd love to do it. Seriously, We've
been avoiding this topic. I've been avoiding this topic for so long, but
I want to talk about it. I want to talk about marriage. I think it's a really interesting conversation, and maybe, just maybe, for some people who are holding on to marriage as covenant and they're both faithful, marriage means a lot to them, and they both really strive to hold it. Like, it's completely awful to be compared to people who just treat it like trash or who don't really see it that it can be functional with the way that they are as a person, like the way that they're. I don't think it's for everybody, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So in the episode that we do on it, you're going to argue for the renegotiation every 2 years, right? I'm
going to argue for alternate forms of marriage. I will. Yeah. I totally will, because obviously something's not working. Obviously people are having affairs, and I'm not saying
you're not working. That's what it is. You people, you're also evil, and I'm not. I think that's where I land on this, is that I am the pinnacle of righteousness, and everybody else in the world. Yep. Everybody else in the world is just a failure.
Oh, great. Yeah. I'm glad you got it all figured out. Will you please lead the free world? And we're just going to leave all of your private affairs hidden.
Yep.
And you can just do whatever you want. It'll be great.
Absolutely.
I think the reason that we're having such a difficult time landing on a certain thing is because we're trying to find some kind of universal standard for how we should approach things like this. And I think that relativist or whatever, but I think that's our problem in the first place, is that our ethics are based on trying to find a universal ethic that applies to everyone. But in a situation like this, like, you have to take it contextually. You have to look at the situation, the person, and you can't, I think any ethic that we hold on tightly is a bad ethic, because it's not taking into account the complexities of who people are and how they interact with the world and the reasons they do the same things.
Right.
You should rephrase that. But I totally agree with what you're saying. Not hold on tightly.
I shouldn't rephrase anything.
No, not hold on tightly. It's implying an ethic unilaterally. I think, like, we should. You probably agree with this. We should hold on to those ethical choices and directives tightly, but not impose them upon every single situation, as if every single situation is the same.
No, I meant what I said. Like, I think even in our own lives, there are moments in our lives where we have an ethic that is very important for us in that moment, but it's not something we need to hold on to for the duration of our life here on earth. Like, I had a strong ethic in high school that I shouldn't listen to anything but Christian music, but I'm glad that's an ethic that I let go of. But I'm also glad it's an ethic that I had during a certain time in my life that helped me move into another place.
Okay, so you are much more relativistic than I am.
But I think we could all agree, though, that we shouldn't hold loosely a concept of love, an overarching concept of radical, hospitable, forgiving love. Like, that there are shades of that in all manner of things. But maybe we need to define how we're using the word ethic or ethics.
True, I agree with that. I would say that the universal motivation for our ethics should be love. But I believe that the specifics of how holding an ethic of love change throughout our own lifetime in the way that we interact with ourselves and other people.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess all this to say, what's emerging for me in this conversation is, if you know somebody who's been affected or who has been implicated in this scandal, love them.
Yeah.
And educate yourself and try to listen first before anything else. I mean, those emotions will probably come, but I think this goes for anybody who has hurt you deeply. Yeah, sometimes you just need to cuss them out at home, alone in your room, into your pillow, and cry and grieve that pain. But I feel like I'm starting to talk like Dr. Phil in this moment. But what I mean to say is, like, when we hold an ethic loosely, we also, I think, in that, have to give people the benefit of the doubt in some capacity. Yeah. Sometimes it's absolutely just to say, you know what, that was wrong. I don't care what your motivation was, but it was wrong, and it was wrong, and it was wrong, and it was wrong. But a lot of times people hurt others because they themselves are hurting. That's all I'm trying to say.
I was going the opposite direction. I was thinking we should just put our question of the week on Facebook. Should we post a picture, name, and address of someone that you found on Ashley Madison?
Oh my! See, that's so wrong. Exactly.
Oh, so
there are news people who are doing that, and it feels so horrible. It feels wrong.
Yeah, but it's those news people that gave you the information that caused you to maybe want to check on someone who's been on the list.
So let's post our question. It's going to be: should you look somebody up ever or not? How about that?
Let those who are without sin cast the first picture.
Let those who are without sin type in the first email.
Yeah. Oh my God. Woo. We picked a fun one this week, you guys.
Did.
Let us know what you think, because we don't know what we think. If you have anything to add to this conversation, you can comment on the show notes at irenacast.com/27. There you also find links to all the stuff that we talked about. And then don't forget to check out our question of the week on Facebook every Wednesday and find out where we landed with that one. On the other side of the music, we're going to be looking at the Hall of Fame of Craigslist. This week, Craigslist Hall of Fame. So how this is going to work is that we've all found odd Craigslist postings, and we're going to share them, right?
Yes.
Funny. I love this stuff. I'm so excited about this. This was my idea, and my ideas always get shot down for the session. So I'm really excited to have one, and I'm just gonna dive in. In Portland, Oregon, somebody posted the following ad. Do you have indoor chickens or ducks? Do you need diapers for your fowl to keep your house clean? We can help. We make custom chicken/duck diapers in a variety of fabric colors and patterns Prices range from $9 to $12 each. And then there are multiple pictures of chickens wearing diapers.
What? Is that real?
Yeah, it's real. It's totally real.
How do you put a diaper on a chicken? That doesn't even seem possible.
Oh, well, we'll have to get a link to it because it's pretty funny. I mean, it just looks like a little cloth bag that they've appended to this poor bird just like strutting around.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to buy one.
Made me laugh so hard.
I'm going to wear one.
A chicken or a chicken diaper?
A chicken diaper. I'm going to wear a
Dress
chicken.
up for Halloween.
Yep. So mine is
wearing a diaper.
Wear a chicken wearing a diaper. I'm going to be a chicken wearing a diaper. So my Craigslist posting, I remembered one from a long time ago that I thought was funny. This was posted in 2013, and I kind of went with the topic of our conversation. So see if you can spot the connection. It is called "Come Get This Plush Ass Queen Simmons Beauty Rest Out of My Life," and the top the posting goes this: "The pain of my broken heart now means less back pain for you. This is basic law of transference type shit. I'm pretty sure the physics work out, but then again, I paid my college roommate, who was a scholarship student, to do all my take-home exams, so I can't be entirely sure. So here's the deal. $150 and it's yours. No catch. Get this effing mattress out of my life. It's a plush queen-sized Simmons Beauty Rest. It's 3 years old and feels like you're sleeping on an effing cloud. Even when you're unknowingly sleeping next to a lying cheater, in a bad relationship, and have to lie next to the constant reminder that you didn't go to grad school so that you could move and get engaged. Then this is the bed for you. It will get you to effing REM, and for 6 to 8 hours every night, you'll forget that you're sleeping next to a sociopath. There are no stains, and this thing hasn't seen action in a while. I thought about giving it away for free, but then I figured, what the hell, sell the bed and go buy and a handle of whiskey. And that's how I settled on $150. This thing is priced to move. It's worth much more than the price, and I figured that even someone who was looking at Craigslist on a Tuesday morning could easily afford it. So don't email me with your lowball offers, and don't agree to $150 and get to my house and offer $100, because that would make you a lying cheater, and I would rather set the mattress on fire and throw it out of the window rather than sell it to you. Seriously, I will lose it. Priority will go to those who can come get this literal bed of lies today, as I've got the entire Fiona Apple and Alanis Morissette discographies to get through. And no, I won't help you get it to your car. There are only 11 steps up to my apartment. You figure it out. I was going to sell the mattress for $200, but I figured it was worth $50 to watch someone else have to struggle over this oppressive burden. Not a deal breaker, but it would help immensely if you look like my ex, as I would love to see an entitled, Ivy League educated asshole struggle with this thing, but totally not necessary.
That's pretty brilliant.
That person seems upset, right?
Yeah. Dude, the bitter ones are my favorite when they're super bitter.
Yeah.
I have one like that. I'll read in a sec. Go ahead.
Someone
Jeff.
must have bought that bed, right?
They
I would love to.
right?
I would love to have laid in a bed of lies, literal bed of lies.
I wonder how many people responded to the ad knowing that she was single just to hit on her.
Wow. Yeah. That's the first thing that comes to your mind. You're like, wow, this person's really smart.
How do we know she's a woman? I'm just saying.
Ooh, thank you. Forgive me.
Ooh.
Forgive me, everyone. It could have been anybody.
It could have been.
Yep. It could have been.
All right. Mine is somewhat along those lines. This person is, to me, brilliantly passive aggressive. So the title is Offensive House Guest Needed. Here's the situation. I've got a nice room in shared housing. However, one roommate has moved in a long-term guest, parentheses mother, and doesn't think that is much of a problem. And then he goes on to basically say, I need a horrible house guest that'll come over and make everyone mad.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome.
I would so do that.
And
that
then
is so cool.
The end line is big, slobby, strange acting, persons preferred, but all will be considered.
That's good.
Dude.
That reminds me of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Have you guys seen that?
Long time ago.
Oh. When she brings over the love fern and is like, oh, Benny Wenny, you killed our love fern. To try to get him to break up with her. Anyway, okay. It's a great movie.
Do you send that link to people you know? Like, and be like, hey, I think this is the right job for you.
If someone sent me that link, I'd be super offended. All right, Mona, you got another one?
Yeah. I have two. I'm trying to decide. Do we want to hear another bitter one or a creepy one?
Let's go creepy.
Creepy? Okay. Jeff loves creepy. Okay.
There's a lot of creepy things on Craigslist, by the way.
Yeah. So this is titled Satan's Marionette Puppet. Condition, fairly odd and unsettling. You'll love it. Runs around the house while you sleep and ends up in impossible places. Winks, but no one will believe you. Makes laughing noises coming from your attic. Indestructible. Causes mysterious and unexplainable accidents. Ladders tipping over, garbage disposals turning on, brake lines cut. Could make a great mobile for a baby's crib. Disclaimer, may cause irrational fear of dolls into late adulthood. Comes with the original padlock chest it was found in after being recovered from the bottom of the ocean. Price, 10,000 souls. Willing to trade for a monkey's paw. Bonus, Stigmata edition. And there's a very creepy marionette. Very, very creepy. Like that's kind of dressed like a yodeling girl from Germany in like the 1960s.
Very nice. That reminds me of the elf thing. Elf on a shelf. Like that's horrible to tell kids that there's this living thing causing problems in your house. Like that's horrible. Tell little children that.
Wait, didn't those things actually spy on the kids though?
Oh yeah, they said he's watching you, so make sure that you do.
No,
good
I think
stuff.
they had cameras in them.
Wait, really? No. Elf on a shelf? No, isn't it just? It's just a little elf. My brother had one for his kids, and it would be at different places in the house when they woke up, and they go, "Oh, how funny, elf on a shelf!" And then he would only whisper to the parents, like he wouldn't whisper to the kids, and he'd tell them the things that they did or whatever. It's kind of creepy. I think I'm getting this right. It's the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
That is very creepy. One time after college, I was living with my housemates, and someone in the house was given a Furby, and we were so freaked out by this thing. You guys remember Furbies?
I remember those, yeah.
Oh my God.
Love
I think they're... Anyway, we couldn't decide what to do with it because it kept freaking us out. So someone put it in the freezer. So one time in the middle of the night, I guess it wasn't the middle of the night because I wouldn't be opening the freezer. That would be weird. But at one point, it was at night. I opened the freezer and the Furby's batteries had slowed down. It hadn't actually killed it. So it was like, Furby, and like turned really slowly and looked at me, and I screamed super loud.
Kids' toys are creepy. I walk through my house in the middle of the night, and all the girls' stuff goes off, and it freaks me out because there's no reason it should have gone off. Like no one pressed the button. There's no one in here.
Why do we give those things to children and like not expect them to be overstimulated all the time?
My favorite children's toy was my little brother. He had his first kid. No. Oh, wow. Okay, I always start sentences.
What did you do to him?
No, okay, so my little brother, his first kid, they gave him a toy octopus, and you press the different tentacles, and it would say different colors, like red, green, purple, and then it went brown, like really sadly. We're like, wow, that is so racist. There's like 12 colors, and they're all super peppy, but it goes brown. I'm like, wow.
Okay.
Wow, that's privilege right there in the form of a toy octopus. That's indoctrination. Look what they're doing. Yeah. Jeff, you got another one?
I do. 2010 avocado for sale.
Ew.
Want to sell ASAP, need money for 2014 Kiwi. So here's the deal. Let me read the rest of it. It's a 2-door, 24,000 mile original owner car that is all custom on a Fiat chassis. So it is a driving avocado.
Oh my gosh.
It's only used for delivering sandwiches, and apparently he wants to save up so he can make a Kiwi car. And the picture on here, it looks like a little Fiat, but it is a driving avocado.
Very nice.
It is pretty brilliant. I would want to drive one of these.
Does he sit inside like the nut in the middle?
He has tinted windows, so it's kind of pimped out a little bit.
So good.
All right, Alan, finish us out.
All right, I have one more. It's a ring for sale, and it's along the same lines as my first one. For sale, I have a 1.5 carat total weight engagement ring set in 14K white gold. The ring is in like new condition, only worn for a short period of time by Satan herself. Comes with the original box. Very pretty ring with a lower setting so the diamonds won't snag on anything. Blah, 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 blah. Bought for a higher sum than I am comfortable admitting. Warning, ring may be cursed as it tends to leave a path of destruction behind it. Possible events associated with the ring are included, but not limited to damage sustained to house, vehicle, heart, downed power lines, fallen trees, and swarms of locusts. I would highly recommend taking action to counter the whirlwind of bad mojo that surrounds this piece of jewelry. Should consider having removed curse removed by voodoo priest or something before presenting to loved ones. Other than that, a very nice piece of jewelry. Looking to sell this soon before it brings any more bad luck into my life, and I'd rather have cash. If not sold by Christmas, I plan to throw it into the fires of Mordor.
Man,
Nice.
People get upset.
Yeah, so
Hey,
bitter.
I would love to have bought that ring.
Wait, can I
with
read
all
my
the
last
bad
bitter one?
memories. Oh, yes. Go for it.
So good. Since we're on the bitter X's kick.
appropriate, right? Considering our
Yeah,
conversation.
I think so. This one's titled Stupid Christmas Plates and Mugs. There's a picture of Christmas plates and mugs. And it says, here we have some stupid Christmas shit. This is posted in Vancouver, by the way. They're pretty ugly, but my ex-wife really liked them. So much like that, just like me, she left them behind. Her last year gain. 4 mugs for hot cocoa when you and the important people in your life are gathered around the fire log channel in your ugly sweaters complaining about mild Vancouver winters. 3 plates so that while you are enjoying your cocoa, 3 of you can also enjoy cookies while making sure the second born still knows he was never wanted. Need to go ASAP. Otherwise, they get used for target practice with my buddy's Glock.
Oh my gosh.
There's a similar. This is like an archetype, like a Facebook Craigslist trope of like the bitter shit, the bitterness and the crap that they're trying to get rid of from the ex, and then they can like vent their bitterness.
Yep. Did you see that YouTube video of a guy cutting everything he had in half? The wife was divorcing him, so she was entitled to half of everything. So he uploaded a video on YouTube of cutting his phone in half, cutting chairs in half, cutting a table in half.
God.
And then in the end, it cuts a car in half.
What? Holy Moses.
People are so angry. It's crazy.
Oh, man. Well,
Yeah.
breakups are tough, man. You got to cope
they're tough.
anywhere you can. Maybe not be that destructive.
Try to be.
Snarky on Craigslist is a good outlet.
It is. Yeah. Anonymous postings where you can say funny things.
Well, I think that'll do it for us this week. Thank you for joining us once again. If you like what you hear, you can help support the show by going to iTunes and Stitcher to rate, review, and subscribe. Your ratings and reviews really help the show by making it easier for others to find us. And then contact us anytime on our feedback page at irenicast.com/feedback, and there you'll find all the ways that you can contact us. So for this week, I'm Jeff.
I'm Mona.
And I'm Alan.
Thanks for joining the conversation.